Welcome to What's Your Story? I'm your host, Charley Timmins, and every week I bring you a guest who's authentic and genuine, who's got insights and valuable practical information you can put to use in your life immediately. Today is no different. Today we're going to deal in the magical world of franchising, one of life's little mysteries. And I have somebody today who's living in that world, enjoying it, and helping his fellow man succeed. My guest today, Harris Gubin.
Welcome. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Let's get right to it.
All right.
What is it that you do in this world of franchising?
So I'm a franchise coach, and that means I sit down and work with executives who are typically in transition and trying to figure out...
Transition meaning?
They've been let go from their current job.
Okay.
Or they're trying to figure out an exit plan out of corporate America. And the franchising world's a complex world, and I help them navigate that. And what that means is really to understand what their skill set is, what their personality's like, what their goals are, and align them with the business to learn a little bit more about and see if it's the right fit.
So they're making an investment, and you're helping them. So explain your role, if you would.
So my role is really to be a coach, a sounding board, a guide, and most importantly to challenge their perceptions and their assumptions, to make them think differently. Because, you know, when you go online and you Google franchising, you get 100 million results.
How many?
100 million results.
Oh my God.
It's a little overwhelming.
Wow.
And everybody's a number one this and a top five that. So how do you figure out what's the right fit? It's a challenge.
So there's a lot of hype going on in that world.
A lot of hype.
So if I were interested, possibly in investigating the world of franchising, et cetera, what kind of outcome would I get in working with a person such as yourself?
So can I tell you a story?
Go right ahead.
So I was working with a couple who, prior to working with me, had found a franchise online. And when they called up that company, who was on the other end of the phone but a salesperson?
Oh.
And so that salesperson, they have a...
On commission, probably.
On commission. They have a quota. And they're not taking the time to really understand what that person's goals are, what their needs are, what they're trying to accomplish. Is this the right fit for them to be successful? You would think that they would, because they don't want to put somebody who's going to be a poor performer into the franchise. And unfortunately, they didn't have a sounding board. They didn't have anybody telling them, hey, did you speak to 5 or 6 or maybe 10 other franchisees to see what their experience has been like? And are they enjoying this process? And are they successful? And is the franchisor a good fit for them, and so forth and so on. And so unfortunately, this couple lost a large deposit.
Really?
And they were not able to get that money back. And if they had a coach like myself to guide them and be their beacon, so to speak, they'd be in a different situation now.
So the person they called represented one franchise.
Correct.
And so that's the greatest franchise in the world that anybody can own.
That's right.
And their job is to get you to press hard 5 copies and become a franchisee, even though it might not be the right fit.
That's right.
And you're an antidote to that.
Correct.
So how many different franchises are you aware of or that you could direct someone to?
Yeah, that's a good question. That comes up in a lot of conversations. So actually there's about 3,800 different franchise concepts out there. And there's some great concepts out there. There's some terrible concepts out there. There's some mediocre concepts out there. So what I do and the group that I work with, we weed through all of those organizations to find what we say is the best performers based upon our criteria, which is companies that have longevity typically, right? Companies that have good brand name recognition in their space. companies that have good ROI. So what does that mean? Most of our clients are executives. They've made six-figure salaries. They'd like to know that hopefully at some point in the future, they can get there. And they're going to validate that anyway. They're going to speak to the other franchisees. And then companies that are reputable to work with.
So in a way, if I come to you, you've already vetted
Right.
those thousands and thousands and thousands of franchise opportunities, so that I have the likelihood of finding something that I might resonate with.
Right. We've done that work for our clients.
Because I knew a fellow who was a client of mine, and he said, I want to get my wife a franchise.
Sounds good.
And that's indeed what he did. She was in corporate America, and then she took care of the family, but she still wanted to have some flexibility, so they bought a franchise that would enable her to operate out of the house, so she would be around the kids. So I just thought it was a brilliant idea, a solution.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that you're willing to share the variety of concepts with people to do these kind of things. So how did you get into this line of work?
Well, I like to say I'm saving humanity by day and creating entrepreneurs by night. And so I've always had a passion around nonprofits, started working with nonprofits, helping them raise more money than they could on their own, but realized that, there was something else out there that I wanted to do, not only for myself, but to, support my family. And, you speak to the universe and it hears what you have to say. And somebody who I'm very good friends with introduced me to a gentleman that took me under his wing. And he's a franchise coach, and he showed me the ropes. And that's what led me to this career as a coach.
What is so satisfying about it for you?
I love helping people. It's in my DNA. I realized a long time ago when I started, after I graduated college and started working and networking, there was no bigger thrill than connecting two really good people together and seeing them hit it off. And it really is the same way with what I do with as a franchise coach. It's having the client and matching them up with a franchisor, and them really finding synergy, and then having my clients say to me, you know what, thank you so much. I wouldn't have found these guys without you, or you made me look at something I never would have looked at before. And that's a thrill for me, making that connection. I love that.
So what is the one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is considering franchising?
Work with a coach.
I didn't ask you to be self-serving.
It's a layup. I recognize that most of my clients, in fact, won't necessarily go into a franchise. So the biggest advice that I can give to somebody is explore. Look at franchising as a big exercise in learning about a business. I can, of course, help with that, but if you were to go it alone, educate yourself. There's plenty of wonderful books out there to really become knowledgeable about what to look for when you're starting to explore franchising.
We need to take a break. We have to hear from our sponsors. But when we come back, I want to go into this a little bit deeper with you. So hang in there. We'll be back in a few moments, and you will learn more about this magnificent world of franchising from Harris Gubin.
RVNTV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVNTV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write, the ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Welcome back to What's Your Story? I'm Charley Timmins, your host. My guest today is Harris Gubin. Harris is in the franchise business. He's a consultant. He helps individuals decide whether or not they should get involved in owning a franchise. So I want to go back to something you'd said before. I asked you, when these people come to you, what can they expect from you? Mm-hmm. And you reminded me during the break that there was something else you wanted to add.
Yeah, so, I always share with my clients, we want to get them to a point where they can make a decision, where we get them, or they really get themselves, enough information and the right information to make a well-informed decision. And that well-informed decision is it could look two different ways. Hey, Harris, great concept. You really knocked it out of the park. We explored it, we validated it, we spoke to the other franchisees. It's the right fit. Or, you know what? We like it, but it didn't validate the way we thought it was going to validate. Oh. And so what does round 2 look like, or round 3? And can I share another story with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a client that I'm currently working with, and they wanted to look at a specific concept right out of the gate. And they thought that this was going to be the concept they wanted to go with. And through back and forth conversation, and really pressing them, and through some, critical decision making and asking the right questions to the franchisor and then the franchisees, they realized that, you peel back the layers of the onion, that it really wasn't the right fit. So now we're at round 2, looking at a concept that we think is going to be in alignment with what they're looking for.
So my personal belief is that it wasn't the right time for them, but they know a lot of people that may be interested in such a concept, mm-hmm. and they would refer them to you. So I think what you're doing is wonderful, because you're really doing the right thing by the client, and you can serve them in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I said before, is most of my clients, I recognize they're not going to go into a franchise. So they'll say to me, well, why do you do what you do?
That's my question.
They don't pay me. So I actually work like an executive search firm, right? Where you don't pay the search firm, but they're compensated by the company if you're placed. So the industry standard out there for all coaches across the country is that their clients don't pay them. We're compensated by the franchisor. So my clients will say to me, there's no guarantee that I'm going to do anything. And I always share with them, that's okay. Because at the end of the day, if you have a good experience with me and you enjoy the process, one day you'll have a friend or family member that'll say, whatever happened with the franchising, and they'll say, I had a great experience with Harris, and you got to give them a buzz. And that's how I've been able to build up the business through those referrals.
You reminded me of a client of mine who recently said he got a phone call, and the bottom line is this individual wanted my client to give him a retainer to work with him to arrive at that decision. And you're saying you don't do it that way.
We don't do it that way. No.
Okay, I think that's important for people to know, is that this is part of your job, which is to educate the people.
Yeah, it really is. That is just part of the business model, and my clients feel comfortable that they're not on the hook for anything. I always tell them the only decision they're ever going to have to make is to learn a little bit more. to learn a little bit more about the concept to see if that could potentially be a good fit for them.
What's happening within the industry? Are there more and more concepts being franchised? Is it getting less? Is it shrinking?
It's growing every day, and there's a lot of hot concepts out there. So
Can you share one with us?
well, I don't want to throw any of the, I guess
You don't have to mention them by name, but the concept.
certain food concepts.
All right?
Certain food concepts are hot for a minute and then they're not. So they taste great,
Okay.
and you might want to partake in them as the consumer. But what I really try and look for with clients is what are things that are in alignment with your goals, things that typically have longevity. There are some newer concepts that are good, but I really try and stay away from the things that are fads.
What about franchises that deal with social responsibility, for example, or working with kids or something like that?
Yeah, those are great concepts. Or after-school enrichment programs that are helping kids be the best versions of themselves. Those are great concepts. Both parents are working nowadays. Their kids
true.
are staying in school later, and somebody has to look after them. So after-school enrichment programs. And then something else that's really a booming area that we see a lot of longevity is senior care. You're helping the seniors and you're helping their family members in a time of great need. So those two industries are quite popular right now.
So at the low end, it's growing,
Right.
and at the high end, it's growing. It's
Yeah.
an interesting point of view on that. We hear business people talk all the time about their value proposition. So share with us some of the feedback you've gotten from your clients as to the return on investment they've gotten from diving in to making an investment in a franchise.
Something I typically hear from clients is that they met with another coach prior to working with me, and the feedback I'll hear over and over again is, that individual really didn't take the time to dig down and have a deeper dive conversation to really understand, what they're trying to accomplish, what's important to them and their family. And they didn't give them thoughtful concepts to look at. And so taking the time, even that extra step, even that extra hour-long conversation this is an important decision people are making. And you don't want to
Absolutely.
just willy-nilly give them concepts that aren't going to resonate with them. It takes time to uncover and explore, so you really try and match them up with something that's going to make sense. And after they explore it, even if it doesn't make sense, they have more clarity and a clearer picture as to what they do want, and that helps us for round 2 or even round 3.
I had a need to buy a car, and I knew what kind of car I wanted to buy. So I went to the dealer, and I'd already bought 2 cars from that dealership over the years. And the person with whom I dealt has known me going in and out of the store forever. And it was obviously, I was going to help him make his quota. The questions were limited, and I really felt that I was not part of the decision-making process. So I found a way of getting out of the store. I went down the road to another dealer, same model, and bought the car there.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the way you're treated. That, Maya Angelou said, people forget what you say, they forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
So even this time you're investing with them, even if they say, no, thank you, the fact is they have a positive experience with you, which not only helps the industry, but it helps you. Because all you need is a couple bad apples and people become suspicious of the industry. So where do you see this going for yourself? Because you're a young man, so.
Thanks. I'm going to continue to coach. I want to continue to help more and more people. It's actually really interesting. When I got into this line of business, I would have people come up to me and say, I never even knew there was such a thing as a franchise coach. And so it goes back to what I said before about that thrill of connecting people, two good people together. To be able to continue to do that and expand upon that is in my game plan for the future.
If people are talking to multiple representatives of franchises, they may not be a consultant, they just represent franchises. What do you think the difference is that you make in their lives versus others?
It's the two parts. I don't have any tie to any one particular franchise. So it's really what's the best fit, okay?
All right.
And number two, this is a big investment. It's an investment in time, it's an investment in money, and then there's the family investment. And so you really want to make sure those three things are harmonious. And so the best feedback I've gotten from my clients over and over again is thanking me for taking those three things into consideration: the time, the investment, and the family unit. Because if everybody's not on board, or those other two things are not working, you know, in concert with the family unit, it's not a good recipe for success. And again, the franchisor, they have to hit a quota. They want to get people into that concept. And with us and myself, it's, is this really the right fit for you? And if it's not, where do you need to get to be? Which may or may not be with me, and might be going back into corporate America.
I think the audience appreciated what you just said.
Thank you.
Franchise, people that buy franchise, do they buy multiple franchises often?
Yeah, some people do. So they call that multi-unit. And so sometimes people will start off with multiple territories or multiple locations, or sometimes they'll start off with one, get their feet wet and say, you know what, I have this all running on 6 cylinders, let me go and invest in the next territory over. And some people are serial franchisepreneurs, where they'll accomplish one franchise concept, do really well with it, and follow a recipe for success with another franchise and own multiple franchise locations.
I have bad news.
All right.
We're running out of time.
Okay.
But the good news is you get to look into that camera right there
Right.
and speak to the audience. And more insights, or you may have an offer to give them, but time's yours. Go right
Sure.
ahead.
I love what I do, and I love working with my clients and helping them explore the complex world of franchising. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more, always happy to sit down and have that conversation. I can be reached at franchisecoachonline.com. Phone number is 267-872-9342, and always available for a conversation or a cup of coffee.
Repeat the phone number if you would please, Harris.
Sure, 267-872-9342.
And I've met lots of people in his field. A conversation with him is well worth it. I can tell you that much. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Charlie.
You've been
Great to
very,
be
very
here.
informative, and I know the audience appreciated how open you were about what you do and why you do it. So again, next week we'll be back here. We'll have another guest who's authentic and genuine, who has information and insights to share with you that you can put to use right away. So again, have a great week. Until next time, be well. Thank you.